So, you've seen streamers playing Path of Exile, or maybe someone you know has recommended it to you, and you've decided, hey, let me try this game. And maybe you open the skill tree, or maybe you've seen something that makes you think, holy shit, this game looks bloody complicated. And to be honest, it kind of is. There's a lot of stuff in the game to learn, especially as a new player, considering how long the game's been out for, and the fact that the devs are always adding new stuff, which is great. So in this video, I'm going to be explaining, you're a new player, what is the stuff that you need to know straight away to get started. So I'll have timestamps in the description if there's any certain thing that you're looking for. Otherwise, if you want to watch the whole video, feel free to go ahead. So we'll be starting with the UI. So you make a new character, this is what you see. Here's your bottom screen UI. So pretty standard stuff. You've got your health bar, you've got your mana pool. This is where your flasks are going to be. This is where all your active skills are going to be. I'll go over what skills are and how they work. So if you're new, I would advise maybe looking at the tutorial. I've never followed the tutorial myself, so I'm going to skip it. But I mean, I've never used it before, so I don't know how good it is, but it's probably pretty good. The next thing about the UI is you can press the tab key to toggle your overlay. So either you can have it on the screen, which is what most people do, or you can have it in the top corner. One thing you can do as well is if you go to the UI options, you can change the landscape transparency. So if I press tab and open that, there you go, look at that. It's, not transparent at all. I like it to be a little bit transparent, and that's how I have it. Another thing you want to have that you want to look at is have a look through all of these, see which ones interest you and which ones you think you would need. Ones that are commonly used is the life bars. So I've got life bars on allies off, but on enemies on. It's very useful when you can tell that basically if you can see how much health an enemy has, how much damage you're doing, are you spending too much time on it, do you need to leave it, do you need to move on, so on and so forth. The next important thing is loot filters, which are... Loot filters have moved to the top, they used to be at the bottom. Anyway, you want to set up a loot filter. Basically, you can see how that item over there is highlighted, and if I drop these on the floor, you'll see that they're also big and highlighted bigger than that. There is a lot of loot that's going to drop in the game, and a loot filter helps you realize what is good and what is not. And as a new player, you're not going to know what's good and what isn't. And the nice thing is, not only is there a visual cue, there's also a sound usually to accompany it. So if an item's really good, there'll be a really loud flashy noise. If it's something basic like this, there won't be a loud flashy noise. So make sure that you get a loot filter. Way to get them is to go to pathofexile.com, log in, and then go to your account page, and then you'll find over there it says item filters. So you can click on that, and then you can have a look and see which ones are good, which ones a lot of people use. I use NeverSync. I think most people use NeverSync. It's the most popular one. He updates it very regularly, and yeah, it's a very good one to use. Next is the skill tree. Now, most people, they're going to open the skill tree, they're going to see all this and think, holy crap, that is super complicated.
Holy shit!
Don't look at it as complicated, look at it as having, a lot available, but you're not going to be taking all of this, at most, I mean, excluding Scion, which gets some extra skill points, but I won't go into that. On average, a character is going to have 121 or 123 skill points that you can take, from leveling up as well as from getting quests. So each character will start in a certain point. So I'm the Ranger, so I'll start here, Shadow, Witch, Templar, Marauder, and then Duelist. And pretty much, if you're playing ranged, most of the ranged stuff is going to be here. If you're playing spell, most of the spell stuff is going to be here, and so on. So don't look at it and think, oh shit, what am I going to choose, If you're playing range, most of the stuff over here is not going to interest you. Some of it might, but most of the time it won't. So that's what you basically need to pay attention to at the skill tree. There are extra things like you get these sockets here where you can put in things that give you more skill points to allocate. But you can look into that later if you want. I'm just covering the basic introduction stuff. As far as creating your first build when you're new to the game, if you want to, go ahead, make up your own build. I would highly recommend looking up build guides on YouTube. There are lots of really good YouTubers who know what they're doing, and a lot of good streamers as well, such as Mathel, Zizarin, ZiggyD, Rise QT, although Rise doesn't really do builds anymore. There are plenty that you can look at. I'll leave some of them in the description, their channels, so you can go have a look, and they regularly do builds and build guides that you can follow along. They're super easy to follow. One thing you will want to get if you're doing a build guide is Path of Building. This is Path of Building over here. What it does is it shows you all the skills you want to take. It gives you all the damage and all the numbers you'll need to know. They show you all the skill gems you need to use, what items you need to use, etc. It's very useful. Another thing about the skill tree is every class has 3 ascendancies, which is basically a way to specialize your class and as for the type of damage you're doing. So this one here is a Shadow, for example. So Shadow, you can either go for Trickster, which specializes in your damage over time, or you can go Assassin, which specializes in critical strikes, or the Saboteur, which specializes in mines and traps. Every class has its own specialities. So if you're looking for a build to do, maybe think of what you want to do. Like, do you want to do something ranged, do you want to do something tanky, or something that can one-shot, and then look up a guide on YouTube. Another short little thing that I'll go over is once you've killed your first dude over here, and you pick this up, you now have a skill. Now, the way skills work in Path of Exile is you socket them into your gear. You can have as little as 1 socket up to 6 sockets. This line in between means they're linked, which means if you have a support gem in here, say added fire damage, it will mean that your burning arrow is now doing more fire damage, for example. And there's a whole bunch of them. You can look through them all on the wiki. And once you've got that socketed, I recommend putting move only on, because if you leave this as default attack, say you want to move next to an enemy, what you'll find is instead you might end up attacking him instead, and that leads to you dying. When you're going through the first area, don't kill any monsters except the last one, because the last one's going to level you up to level 2 anyway. So killing the other monsters, you're not really going to get any amazing loot, and you're not going to get much XP from it. It's really not worth it. So just run straight to the end and kill this guy. If you don't want to get hit at all, say you're playing hardcore, which I wouldn't recommend if you're new, just, you know, cart him around. It's very easy to do so. See, now with this loot filter, it's showing me that, okay, see, this item has 3 linked sockets, so it's a good item to go for. Or this item's blue, that's the rarity. Rarities of items, they can be either white, blue, yellow, or orange, which is normal, magic, rare, and then unique. Uniques are set items where they always have the same, you know, like say there's a unique called Tabula Rasa, or there's lots of them, I'm not going to go over them, but they all have certain stats that only that unique will have, and then they'll have different numerical rolls. Magic items can only have 2 stats on them, rares can have up to 6, but again, that's sort of kind of advanced, well, not super advanced stuff, but it's not very beginner stuff, so I'm not going to go into that heavily right now. Another important thing to note about your gear is there are different socket colors. So they are green, blue, and red. Green ones usually require dexterity. So if you open up your character sheet, you'll see over here, there's your intelligence, dexterity, and strength. Every side of the tree, so this side of the tree will have mostly dexterity. Over here, you're going to have mostly intelligence, and over here, you're going to have mostly strength. But you can pick up whatever you need, and you can get it on gear as well. To change, so different gems will have different colors, obviously. So say you have a blue one, it ain't going to fit in the green or the red. It's only going to go in the blue or the white, which is a rare, well, rare-ish one you can get at the end game. You're not going to really get leveling unless you buy a unique item with a white socket. To change these, you get a currency item called a chromatic orb. So I'll test out on this one just to show you. So, oh, latency. Right click on that, left click, bam, one of them turn blue. And you get all sorts of different types of currency items. My recommendation, whenever you pick them up, mouse over them, read what it does. There's too many of them for me to explain them all. And it's the best way to learn about it. And also, when certain ones drop, you'll learn how important they are, because the loot filter will either shout at you saying, hey, pick up this item, it's good. Or make a soft little sound like saying, hey, pick up this item if you want, but you don't have to, it's not worth much. While I'm on my stash tab, when you start the game, you're only going to have 4 stash tabs, and they're all going to be blank ones like this. They're not going to be specialized ones like that. These 4 tabs can fill up very quickly. So my advice, don't consider buying new ones until your 4 ones are starting to fill up and you're really enjoying the game and want to put time into it. Then I recommend getting a currency tab and a map tab first. Those 2 will save you the most space, because currency and maps take up a lot of space, especially maps. I mean, on this league, I haven't actually got to maps yet, but I mean, you can see how much space it gives you for all the different types of maps. It's a lot of space. Right, now the next thing that I'll touch on, which is sort of important, but I won't go into the detail of every single thing, is that there are a lot of different mechanics in the game that have carried over from past leagues. So every 3 or 4 months, there'll be a new league that will come out, which is basically a fresh start, so the game doesn't get stale and boring, and always have a brand new mechanic. If the mechanic works well, if it's well received by the community, then the developers will decide to implement it into the game, and it will be less common. So in a league, that mechanic will be in every zone you enter. When it gets implemented into the game, we'll have a low chance, like say 5% chance, a 10% chance, whatever. There are a lot of different mechanics in the game. Basically, when you encounter one, Google it. So say you encounter a shrine. I mean, shrines are pretty self-explanatory. You click on them, you get a buff. But if you don't understand something about it, look on the wiki, Google it. They're easy to understand when you actually read into it. There's just a lot of them to learn about. When you unlock a hideout, basically a hideout is a zone that you can go to where you'll be doing a lot of your endgame stuff from. You'll encounter different masters. The masters are basically, they are related to certain previous leagues. So Elva will let you open up a temple where you can get some cool loot. Einhar is beasts. You'll encounter beasts in Act 2. Sister Cassia is for blighted stuff, which is an endgame mapping thing. You won't find that when you're leveling. Nico, Act 3, there's an infinite delve that you can go into, which basically we just go into this endless dungeon kind of thing. Kill monsters, get good loot. June, Act 4, is where basically there'll be areas you encounter where you have to kill bad guys and then extract information from them or just get drops from them, etc. Again, I don't want to go into that heavily right now. I just want you to be aware that there are a lot of different mechanics in the game that if you want to sink a lot of time into this game, you're going to need to understand them all. At least, basic information about all of them. The most common ones that you'll find is going to be strong boxes. You'll find strong boxes from Act 1, which is basically you click on it, monsters spawn, you kill the monsters, and then the box will open and it'll have some stuff in it. And they can have different rarities and different modifiers on them that make the monsters deal more damage or have more of a rare monsters, which are monsters that have more modifiers on them, etc. And usually the more mods on it, the better the rewards, generally, not always. Essences are very common. An essence is where you'll see or show up as like a blue icon on the map. There'll be an overlay on the screen now. There you go, that's what it looks like. And you click on the monster trapped in the essence 3 times. It will then awaken, you kill it, it will drop that essence. These are what essences look like. Now, when you hover over it, yes, that's a wall of text. It's a lot to read and there's a lot of different ones. Basically, every different one will give you certain modifiers that you can roll onto an item. So it turns the item into a guaranteed rare, which is a yellow item like this, with 1 roll guaranteed as well. So woe ones will be spell damage, and all these ones here, basically the roll gets higher. So greed, you get the bottom, which is whispering, up to deafening is the max for all of them. Don't try to, don't bother memorizing them on purpose. You'll memorize them over time. You'll see a woe and you'll think, okay, that's spell, or you'll see a greed and you'll think, okay, that's health or damage, whatever. It's a really cool thing for rolling good gear. There's a lot of crafting to be done, especially with all the different types of currencies. As you can see, all the currencies will do certain things to items that you'll learn over time. Again, don't try rushing it, just let it come naturally. The next thing to note is basically what your leveling is going to be. You go through areas, you'll get quests that are compulsory to do and quests that are optional. Basically, when you get a quest from an NPC, it'll say whether it's optional or not. A lot of the optional ones you don't have to do. Some of them you can get some decent rewards from, like skill points or gems that will be beneficial for leveling. And basically what you do is there's the first part, which is Acts 1 to 5. You go through all of that. Once you kill the boss in Act 5, you will lose 30% to all your resistances. So over here you've got fire, cold, and lightning resistance. Once you kill the boss in Act 5, all your resistances will lose 30%. And then again, when you do the same in Act 10, which is part 2, once you've killed the last boss in Act 10, you'll then lose a further 30%. So you lose 60% in total. And your resistances can be capped at 75%. That's reduced damage you're taking from attacks. Well, spells usually, but attacks as well. Once you've done that, then the end game begins. So if you find acts 1 to 10 boring, keep on going, you know, get to the end game, which is when you start maps. You know, it's not going to be super interesting. Maybe for the first time, I found it pretty interesting my first time, but the game really begins once you finished Act 10 and you get to doing your atlas, which is that key over there, which is, again, a lot of information, but I'm not going to go over that. There's plenty of good YouTube videos explaining all that. This is just introductory for when you're first learning the game. One more thing before I end that I should have touched on earlier is flasks. Don't be afraid to use your flasks. They recharge when you kill monsters. When I first started playing the game, I was like, oh crap, should I use my life flask, you know? What if I need it again later? If you need it again later, you'll have charges from killing monsters. So you can see it says consumes 15 of 45 charges. That means you can use it, math, 3 times. But by the time you've used it all 3 times and you've killed more monsters, it will have charged up again. And yeah, basically have fun. Experiment with new builds, with new skills, all sorts of stuff like that. There's countless different skills you can play. You can see here, this is sort of like a semi-finished character. This is character level 90. This is what your skill tree looks like. So as you can see, of the, you know, hundreds of skill points available, or skill points available, I've only taken certain ones that I need for my build. So that is it for this short video. Hopefully, I don't know how long I've been recording. I hope it is very useful to you new players. Please play the game. It is a lot of fun. If you have a look at the reviews on Steam, you can see that they should be mostly positive or overwhelmingly positive. Not sure about that because after the recent release there was a bit of negative press about that. Anyway, it's a good game. It's really fun. I've got somewhere between 3,000 and 4,000 hours. I've been playing the game since 2015. I love it. You know, it's a game that you can play, take as long a break as you want, come back at the start of a new league, and you're not going to be behind other players like you will be in certain MMOs, because fresh league, fresh economy, everyone's starting from the beginning. It's a lot of fun. It's really good if you can get into a guild. There you go. Let's see, is anyone in my guild? I'm the only one online right now, but that's because it's late in the league. But yeah, you get lots of active guilds and meet lots of friends, and it's a lot of fun, especially when you're playing with others. So thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If there's anything else you want to know, please leave a comment, leave a like on the video if you enjoyed it, and I shall see you in the next one. Goodbye.